Welcome. Welcome to Duluth Public Schools ISD 709. This is our committee of the whole meeting. We have this once a month. It is Wednesday, November 15th. We're a week later because typically our committee of the whole meetings are on a Tuesday. I couldn't tell if I think it's the first Tuesday of the month, but that was also the election night. And so we are meeting tonight on a Wednesday. And I'm going to turn it over to Clerk Zadowski to take roll.
Sure. Member Eater is excused. Member Kirby?
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp?
Here.
Member Lofeld?
Here.
Member Oswald?
Here.
I'm here. Member Sandholm?
Here.
Superintendent Magus is excused. Assistant Superintendent Bonds?
Present.
Deputy Clerk Zunich?
Present.
Executive Director of Human Resources Severance?
Present.
Executive Secretary Shannon Brown?
Here.
That's all I have on the roster.
Did you ask that Assistant Superintendent Bonds? Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's present.
He
He's
is.
present. Checked him out.
And so we are here tonight. Our committee of the whole meeting is really informational, presentational based. It is an incredibly important and informative and really great information and discussion that happens at our committee of the whole. And again, just a note too that Member Eater is traveling with family to an unexpected trip, and Superintendent Magus, because this is Wednesday, has another board meeting in our community that he is a part of, that he would really have wanted to be at that meeting, and typically Wednesdays are not meetings for the school board. So we know that the nice thing about our district is that we either live stream and we can watch it later, or in this case tonight, we are taping it and then we load it onto our YouTube site. So we welcome our community that's here in person, but we also welcome our community that watches us at their convenience. So welcome. So tonight we have 4 presentations from a variety of staff in our district, and I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you, Chair Lofo, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for your patience with us as the other meeting went over just a little bit, but we appreciate everyone being here and for your patience with us. We're going to start right away with our first presentation provided by Executive Director Teresa Severance. It supports our district strategic effort of improving systems, and it's a review of facilities capacity, and I'll turn it over to Executive Director Severance.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds. So I'm going to be speaking related to our facility services, specific to facility assessments and capacity, and just kind of give you a brief overview of where we're at with the assessments as well as occupancy reporting. And what I have attached is an example of a recent completion of a facility condition assessment report. So this is just one example. We have one of these for each of our facilities that was done in conjunction with work with ICS, and they look at all the conditions of our buildings, and then you'll see within this attachment there's also pictures of any concerns that they have and beliefs that things that should be maybe looked at. And we use these reports specifically to look forward for what kind of projects need to be coming forward to make sure that we're maintaining our buildings in the most efficient and effective ways. So just an example about that. We do have this has been completed now for all of our buildings, so that will be something we use going forward as we come forward with the LTFM reports and things that we'll plan for progress going forward. This helps us to inform those decisions. The second component that we will also be doing, sorry, if you go back to that report, the second page there, the facility condition report, excuse me. So it has a narrative, and then that second page, go back to that numbered page. You can see where kind of rates where the facility is at. So that also talks about the condition of this certain components, and of course, if we have places that are in like a 2 or 3, there's more urgency, and again, kind of helps to drive some of our decisions. If you scroll one more page down, then it kind of just shows some of the items that they would have noted in the narrative above, kind of pictures, so that we have a better understanding of it. Is it one last?
Yeah, just interest pages.
So that's our assessments. And then in conjunction with that, we're also looking at our facility capacity. So this was last done in 2018, and this report talks about each of the spaces, what the square footage is, the max occupancy, the ideal occupancies. What we are in the process of doing is updating this, and we'll be sending out communications and surveys to our building leaders to help determine not only what is happening in each of their rooms, so if it's a kindergarten class, how many students do you currently have in that space? So we want to make sure that the capacity assessment is accurate to what's being done in the spaces within the building. That helps us for a couple of reasons. It helps us, to understand if we're having growth in our buildings, do we need to look at different, options. This year, you might remember that we did some adjustments to Lowell to allow for extra space. We made some wall changes. We also did the same at Homecroft. So we'll be using this data with the updated information from our principals to ensure that we have correct learning space for the students as well as other things that need to happen. This data would probably also be used to drive boundary discussions in the future too, because we'll have a better accurate picture of what's actually happening within the classrooms and the spaces in each of our buildings. So we are hoping to have that capacity study done by the end of this school year so that we can look forward to what does that mean going into next school year.
Questions? Oh, sorry.
Member Sandholm?
I'm just gonna
Turn your mic on.
pick, I'm sorry. There we go. So I'm on, the considerations list there. And I guess I just need an explanation on where it says artificial turf replacement 2024 and 2032. So is that an or is that an and? Because, 2024 would be 12 years out from installation, I guess. That building, that site opened up in 2012.
Typically, artificial fields are good for a good 10 years.
Okay.
After 10 years, they start showing a lot of wear, they start to tear, and so they recommend, the manufacturer even recommends that you start budgeting for replacement in 10 to 12 years. So it's just a analysis of what the field looks like and what they felt it probably will last yet.
So when it says 2024 and 2032, we're anticipating replacing it in 2024 and then maybe again in 2032 or 2034,
Yep.
something like that.
Exactly.
Okay. And then this is a question for Simone. So when we're renting out or making that field available to other users besides our PE classes in school or our athletic teams on the west end or east end, are we charging fees that would go into a replacement budget or a quarter of the budget that's for field replacement in the future when if we are charging fees for other outside users? How's that work?
A very good question, and I would have to look into that. I'm not aware of too many fees that are being charged, so I'd have to dig into that particularly. And we would reseed it into the site, probably into Fund 1, which is also Fund 5. So ultimately, yes, we could use that money towards some replacement, but that's generally not how it works. If that rental of a field would be considered just part of the sport and would be part of revenue. And replacing a field would be a capital project. So it's it's the same fund, but two different buckets of money.
But there are some pretty heavy outside users when you look at whether it's football teams that are Denfeld football using the Denfeld facility or even using the Lincoln Park facility. Keep going on that. So is that something we should be taking into consideration for future use and future field replacement?
Absolutely, and I can dig into it further to see what's happening right now. I'll talk to the athletic directors.
Does the rental of our facilities go through community education? Would you connect with that lead, with Jeremy Rupp too?
I will.
To see, yeah.
I'll dig into it, yes.
And if Shannon would put that maybe on a tickler file for an update at another meeting, that would be great too. Because that's a good question and something that we want to have more information going forward when we look at this.
Can I seek clarification
Yes.
specifically on what is the ask so that we can make sure we look into it? So what is
Thank you.
what is being requested?
Do you want to clarify, Paul, what your ask might be? I could give you another version, but
Yeah, just how we are addressing or handling the use of our facilities, and especially the athletic facilities that are in high demand by outside users. And are we collecting, rental time or fees for the time that they're using it? And where's that money going? Or should we be collecting fees for the use of those facilities?
Thank you.
And if you want to clarify.
no, but I think that sounds good.
Sounds good. Just wanted to make sure we captured
Thank
it
you.
clearly. Thank you.
Member Lefflerton.
I just wanted to make sure I heard you right. So the last time we did this capacity and occupancy report was in 2018, and then you're hoping that by the end of this year, school year, it'll be completed for every building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask this question just because I had a community member ask me, and I hope I answered it right, but do our playgrounds, do we have kind of a process for replacing them that we're required to do because they're school playgrounds? I thought I remembered that someplace.
Yes, we do have a process. Issue has come up with the natural playscape playgrounds and replacing. We are doing a study on them. We're gonna make sure that we're gonna provide information for the people that want to have them, that they have to make sure that they're safe, that they can be tested and examined for, like the regular playgrounds do, for safety. That's the big issue, is the safety, and then we need to have some legal advice that if we're not buying them ourselves, but they're still in our areas, what's our legal responsibility if somebody slips and falls, gets hurt, or has a greater injury? So we are doing that study right now. I know that it's hard to be patient, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get that done. But we are digging very thoroughly into this to make sure that we do it right. Before, you guys didn't have anything. They were letting the groups come in and do whatever they want, and we've been finding some very severe issues with that. So we're gonna try and fix all that and make it good for both parties.
Okay, thank you, and I think they're an important piece to our outdoor play, just to let you know. But I actually was referring to your more traditional playgrounds that we have at every elementary school. Is there like a rotation when they need to be replaced?
Yes, currently we have them studied through a private company. This year was IEA, and they go through and they make recommendations. And when the equipment is getting obsolete or wore, that we can't get parts or anything, that's when we start looking at time to replace them.
Okay, thank you.
So Brian, did you say every year we have IEA visit all of our playgrounds and
They
do
don't
an
visit them every
assessment?
year. We're required by the state to do it every 3 years.
Every 3, yeah.
But so what we do to make it a little more even, we pick certain buildings out for each year. We do it each year, but at 3 or 4 different buildings each year.
Great, thank you.
I believe there was a hand up from member Oswald.
Thank you, Anthony. My question is in regards to the LED upgrade. We heard yesterday at the business committee meeting about doing something, potentially getting a company to do some LED upgrades and things like that. Is this in reference to that project?
I'm not quite understanding what the question is. The LED upgrades is something that needs to be done across the district. And what we're looking at is to have a company come in and do a performance bond that gives us guaranteed savings. And so the payment for those new fixtures and the upgrades would be paid for out of the savings of the power that we're saving. And so it would not cost anything out of the school district's pocket.
That's exactly what I was asking. Thanks for figuring that out. And so is that a potential savings, or is that what is the $400,000 attached to that line item something we're going to be saving if we go that route, or is that if we do it on its own?
No, that's a complete different savings. I'm not seeing the 400,000 line items.
Under considerations in the,
Upgrade and lighting. That upgrade and lighting was just something that was plugged into a spot in the LTFM funding so that we could currently continue upgrading what we've been doing lately. All we've been doing is changing out balances and light bulbs. And this would allow us to do the entire schools and to have much greater savings. That way we would not have to use the LTFM funding anymore for that.
all right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions. And if the board could, just if you could move your nameplate over just a little bit so I can see the green light right now. Thank you. It's just I can't see all of those green light in case you are seeking to.
Yeah, that's true.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So our next presentation, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Our next presentation will be given by Director Jim Arbor and Brenda Sparks. It is in support of our Advancing Equity, which is a pillar of our strategic planning. It's related to the Instructional Leadership Academy, and I'm going to turn it over to them once they get set up. Director Arbor and Director Sparks.
Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Make sure yours on.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll do the same one. We'll do the same one. We're gonna get our stuff together.
We can do that. Yeah, so hopefully you all had an opportunity to look at our presentation in advance. We don't really want to run you through a long slideshow. We're here to talk a little bit more about our experience that we're having with CEL and share some information and maybe answer any questions that you might have. But there are slides in there with some really good information for you that we can talk about a couple of the slides maybe, but we probably aren't going to run through every single one, if that makes sense for you. Yeah, so.
Are you gonna pull up the,
It's there.
just having trouble.
But it can't preview. It's not loading real well.
No, it's not.
It's not loading well, so. We're having tech issues.
Well, so what we thought we would do is, first, the Center for Educational Leadership is an organization based out of the University of Washington, out of their College for Education. And so I don't know how long it's been going, but it's been going for quite a few years. And what they do is they come into schools, districts, into systems, and they partner with them for leading equitable schools and then developing leadership so that they can better prepare themselves to lead teachers. And so basically that's what they do. We have kind of been on a journey with them the last few years. We did last year we went through the Leading Equitable Schools. I think we started actually the spring of.
I think with COVID, we had done, like even the year before, we really got going the last year.
Right.
With COVID, it kind of slowed down the first year that we tried.
And that was really centering the student experience and story, which was really interesting. Really listening to them with intention of hearing their experience and then taking that experience and applying it to your education system, to our district, to sites. And so last year we had a lot of embedded pieces where we went into schools, we polled students, and then the facilitator actually helped us lead and be intentional on what we were listening for and what we were asking students to share with us. So it was great learning, and I know that some of the principals are continuing that work.
There was another piece around, we did a lot of learning around where do students see where they have agency or some decision-making within the schools, how are they represented in the schools, so like their status, and then that sense of belonging. So there all those three components were really the core of what we were doing around student experience, and the principals also built like some vision boards for their school, like what they would like to see at their schools.
And then we had another piece where Jen and Anthony and myself, we went down to the cities, I forget how many times, and we participated in the Principal Support Academy. There were several other superintendents, assistant superintendents, and people like the two of us. So it was interesting for Jen and I because of these new positions in Duluth, but these positions actually exist in other districts. So we got to kind of, talk to them and listen to their experiences. So that was, and then that was all about strengthening our ability and that instructional piece to lead principals in the work. So very interesting work, and the best part was actually working with other districts. There were a lot of districts within the cities that participated too. So that was great. And then this year, we decided to keep going with our partnership with the Instructional Leadership Academy. When we were down at the Principal Support Academy, we kept hearing about this. So we finally asked, like, what is this thing? Well, it was the next step in our journey, actually. So this year, we really are engaging the principals with CEL in becoming focused on instruction in the classrooms and recognizing, actually, a lot of this is student-centered too. And they use the 5 dimensions of teaching and learning, which we linked in there in case you want to look at that. We also included some screenshots of that in the back. One of the exciting things for me, and we didn't put this in here, is this is directly aligned, this Instructional Leadership Academy work, with, you're going to hear us talk about teacher clarity. It's directly aligned with standards, learning intention, success criteria. It's directly aligned with what we're doing with PLCs. It really has an alignment with most of our school improvement plans. So that's exciting for me that we're kind of full circle talking about the same thing in lots of different realms. So, yeah.
So just the Instructional Leadership Academy, what we're doing is we're really developing the skills of our principals and in how we collect data around walkthroughs when we're going in and what we're looking for specifically, and then what do we do with those data and how do we analyze that data afterwards. And so we're practicing that together as we are going through this cohort together. And so I know that we had thrown on like dates and all the things for you to see, but just so you're aware that we have all of our principals and our directors and even a couple of our TOSAs engaging in this work. We have 2 different cohorts that are running, and so we do the same thing, but each cohort is maybe at a different site or at a different level site, but we're doing the same thing within our cohorts that we're working with. We did kick off with an opening institute. We're going to have a middle of the year, I guess. Our mid-program, I guess it would be. We're going to have another institute where we come together, so our whole team comes together, all the principals. And then another time, we'll close it out in May. So we do come together fully as principals and directors and leaders together 3 different times, but the bulk of the work is really being at sites and getting into classrooms and really looking at what is the purpose when we're in the classroom. That's where we're aligning what CEL does is under this purpose realm with our teacher clarity, like can students see what the purpose is of the lesson when they're in there? And then also engagement. Those are the 2 areas that we're focusing in on and how students are being engaged in the learning.
And again, one of those pieces with CEL, it's always student-centered. So when we go in and we're observing, we're asking students, what are you learning today? How do you know if you're going to be successful? So we really want to know if that intention of learning is translating to the student and they're able to kind of take that in and assess themselves towards it. So that's one piece of it too. It also is about having a collective focus across our district. This is K-12 leaders getting together. So no matter, and we go to high schools, we go to elementary schools, middle schools, and so no matter what level you are, I really enjoy that piece of it too, because if I'm an elementary principal, how many times do I get to go and observe high school classrooms? But this allows us to like observe and have that objective, like student experience at the center. So that's kind of fun for me too. What else do we want to know? We included in here the 5 dimensions, the different screenshots, like I said, and Jen mentioned we're sticking with that purpose piece, which is really, like I said, aligned to so much of the other work that we're doing right now. And then Jen and I also have a little piece where we get coaching.
A lot of coaching.
Directly from the leaders at CEL. And so they get on with us and they ask us basically like, how are you, integrating this work into what you do with principals? And like we have our Principal Plus meetings, and what we try to do is take this work and put it into all of those different structures that we have. That's really helpful. And now that we've been with this person, Lisa, through all of,
For 3 years probably.
yeah, it's really nice because she knows us and she understands where our district is. She asks a lot of questions, and so she aligns all of her work with CEL through our priority work and our strategic plan. So,
and when we started this journey, I think another piece to bring in is that we also brought Terry Huddle, who is our Regional Centers of Excellence advocate. Is that what she's called, an advocate? We brought her and Lisa and ourselves together into the conversation just to make sure that all these different pots that are kind of working on similar things all were aligned and moving us all in the same direction. So that also had happened as we started that. So if you have any questions for us, we just wanted to share a little bit about where we were at with some of the work with CEL.
And before I call on Member Laura Kemp, I want to thank Jen and Brenda for all of their hard work supporting our principals. And if we can go back to that one slide that looks like this. I want to, right there. Keep going. Showcase a little bit more. And I'm bringing this up because how does this fit in the area of advancing equity? As you can see here, CEL is focused on equity-driven leadership. So we know what the research has shown and over again is if things are going to improve, it's the principal that's going to really lead that work. Teachers make the biggest difference in the classroom. Principals make the largest and has the most influence in the building. And so we have to make sure our principals are really equity-driven and that they are instructional leaders. And so CEL is really all about developing the capacity of our principal supervisors and coaches, as well as making sure that principals, again, are really leading with equity in mind as they support their staff and support their work in the building. So this captures exactly what that looks like. Member Lawford Kemp.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for kind of emphasizing this slide too, Anthony. It made me think a lot of just a month or two ago when you brought all the principals here, and I really appreciated the cohesiveness in some ways that I saw of the presentations and the genuineness that came out of what they shared. So that is because of your work. I'm well aware. I just had a couple questions. Principal Plus meetings. What are Principal Plus meetings? I'm sorry.
well, they're a meeting that we hold once per month. I forget which Wednesday, but it's a Wednesday morning each month where all the principals come together And there's information we need to impart on them, and we all need to be on the same page. If we have some policy work, or if there's some student handbook work, or those types of things, or the CIT, all of that work that we did is all through the Principal Plus meetings, and then learning.
I think the plus part that you're probably confused about, it's not just principals sitting at the table, it's district leaders, it's some of our TOSAs, so it didn't make sense just to call it a principal meeting.
Okay.
So we called it Principal Plus, because we added in all these other people that are supporting principals as well.
And that's separate than other principal meetings that you have?
Yep.
Twice
Yep.
a month, I think, yeah.
And we invite people if they have some, I think you came to the Principal Plus.
Yeah, you
I
did.
think I was at a principal plus meeting, I didn't know that's what I was
You
at.
were the plus.
Yeah, okay. And then I had another question. So how is evaluating what the principals have gained built in this process?
So she does,
From their perspective.
she does pluses and deltas through every learning session that we do and collects feedback. And then through our coaching sessions, we're looking at the feedback that's being given at that time. I guess we've just got more anecdotal kind of information, but we did do kind of a strength-based survey at the start of this session. We haven't gotten our results back. It's really for each principal to really use and reflect on their growth throughout the year as we move forward. So it was like a pre-assessment that principals did. I don't think we ever take the assessment again, but it really was like, what are your strengths? Yeah, it's called the mile.
Yeah, and I see it and hear it, the growth in them when we're sitting in schools, like last time when we went to observe, and then the things that they were discussing, you can just see like kind of the aha and the learning going on. And Lisa does an excellent job pulling that out of them, and us actually, I've learned a lot too. And so it's just exciting to kind of see the changes and just the questions that you might ask and what you might focus on. Yeah.
Amber Sandro?
Yeah, thank you for sharing this, and everything that you're learning and that the principals are learning and gaining from this. But to me, the bottom line is it's got to get to the classroom teacher. And so can you share with us how principals are getting what you've learned and what they've learned into the classroom? Whether is it coming up, is it happening in staff development days, or is there something else that's going on here that's, seeing the complete follow through on this?
Well, I guess what I'm going to say piggybacks off what Anthony said. What we're doing is developing stronger equity-based leaders that go into their schools and then impart that onto their teachers. And part of this Instructional Leadership Academy is doing that observing piece, but then when we get into the spring, it's all about the feedback that you give teachers and the coaching and how you do that, why you do that. And so that'll be the next piece of it. We're not there yet, so I can't really give you more detailed answer than that. And that's, the principals will be embedding that in their practice.
Do we need to add staff development or somehow incorporate this into our staff development days, where our principals are working with the staff in their building? Or are there other ways besides our, as we talked about earlier in policy, the is it 3 times a year? Evaluations. It can come up then too, but how do you follow up on that?
So I think one of the big important things to understand is that we've really tied this to our work around teacher clarity. And that's where we are seeing a lot of our professional development. Teachers need to be looking at what they're doing in the classroom through their PLC structures and really working with other teachers in order to improve their practices. And so what we're doing with Instructional Leadership Academy, we have teacher clarity as our big bucket this year. That's really, we're trying to wrap around all these different things around teacher clarity this year. And what we're doing is we're showing, while we're learning with the principals, like, we can do walkthroughs. When you think about a principal and how much time in their day, and are they really prioritizing going into those classrooms and doing walkthroughs and collecting data, it's hard. They just end up like, oh, all I got done was some teacher evaluations because that's mandatory. But we're trying to say, this is another way to get into classrooms. This is another way to do these checks. Let's do it together. Let's practice together. And some things really came out through our walkthroughs. Our first one, like we're talking about teacher clarity in all kinds of different places, and we're seeing things that are starting to be implemented in the classrooms, and then that brings us back to having more conversations at Principal Plus, and we then give them like the next little piece, like we really were talking about learning targets and what are learning targets, and we've done work around learning targets in the past, but our understanding has evolved around what that really is, and learning targets really should be in kid language like I am learning, and be really specific so kids can answer, what am I learning, why am I learning this, and how do I show you that I've learned this? So those pieces are things that we're talking about. Principals are really starting to talk more about. And then the really cool thing, Tanya Lake's not here right now, but she does a lot of the work around our continuous improvement team efforts. We've done some work on trying to align things across the district, and one of the things we did this year was really simple, was having a common agenda format, which you don't think, oh, it's just an agenda. But we started pulling up the agenda for all the schools because they've now all been shared with us, and we were just like thrilled to see like teacher clarities on everybody's agenda on all these things that were being pulled out from and worked on with our teams were all instructional focus or things that were really critical to the district and efforts that were moving forward. So I think just having all that, we're just coming together more and being more aligned in a lot of our practices and what we're doing.
Good, thank you.
Member Joe.
So Paul really stole my question there too, because, my focus was how do you bring that, but I also want to support and as a classroom teacher, I realize that principals do hold that incredible leadership, and the fact that we are spending time developing and enlightening. They probably, I just think that bodes well, and teachers are hearing, the conversations their principals are having, and I know, like on me, when you said teacher clarity, I went to, that's learning targets, and I was doing that before we left, along with the standards that I was dealing with, or what we were expecting at the end of the hour, and I was appreciative of principals who walked around to see and to support and to ask questions too. So I think I've asked this before, and again, many of us on the board have gone to presentations where Professor Pakel, the woman, I know her husband's a superintendent in Rochester, but she's done a lot of, is she part of this, or this is separate? She's doing, she has a whole, she's out of the University of Minnesota, right? And just a specialty in principal leadership, and did the surveys and really enlightened. I know, for me, there was a lot of ahas as she spoke, and I think I've heard her 3 times, and I think she's doing another step in her data collection and her surveys and her responses.
So our certificates that we got from the Principal Support Academy are actually signed by her.
Yeah,
so
I bet.
she was part of that. She's not actually part of CEL because she works for the University of Minnesota, but they have partnered together in the district, or in the state, specifically around that Principal Support Academy it's been an area where they've partnered. So she was on a few of our meetings, but she's not doing the work that we're doing with our principals.
Right.
But a lot of this work is feeding into like back and forth, that survey data has been shared, yeah.
And then are we continuing our partnership? Do we have a set partnership with this academy? Or is it a year by year that we partner with them and bring them in? Or are we?
This
is our
until
3rd
May.
year.
Yeah, and this part of it goes until May. And so, I don't think we have any plans for partnership after that at this point.
I was going to say, at this point, as Director Sparks said, it is annual, and so it is set to end at the end of this year. The goal is to really
Empower them.
support our principal supervisors and make sure they have the capacity to continue the work beyond SAIL. So right now, it's just a lot of learning and growing and supporting through SAIL with our leaders, and then they will take it over from there.
Are we working with just our main principals, or are we bringing in our assistant principals or our deans, all of that?
Our
assistant principals, not our
and
deans.
not our deans,
Yeah.
our assistant principals.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Lockwood.
Yeah, two follow-ups. One is that report that Joe mentioned, we maybe should maybe share again with the whole board. Some of us did go to a training, I think it was at MSBA conference, but that would be that principal report that's been referred to. I think that background, I know I thought it was just very enlightening, I guess. I guess want to support and Assistant Superintendent Bond said principals need to leave the buildings, and that's what this is all about. And I just, from being a board member and over the now 10 years, this is so where we needed to continue to go to support our principals and then support our the schools that they work in and the communities that they work with. So I'm very excited of hearing this, and we'll be excited to hear at the end of the year, more of your kind of evaluation of things. And then also hearing from the principals themselves. So, good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Sadowski.
Yeah, just really quickly, thank you. I really appreciated hearing how it connects with the teacher clarity and our strategic plan. And you shared a little bit about how student-centered this is, and then I'm looking at the presentation and it says center student experiences and stories in school leadership. So can you share just maybe one little way that you capture that and integrate it in? How are you capturing those experiences?
Yeah, so I can do it from a secondary perspective because I think we have a little bit more of a way and the vehicle for getting information from our groups. So I was able to sit in with the POV group at East and with the Golds group at Denfeld and just hear from them, some of their experiences. One of the things, meeting with a small group, hearing from special education students was really powerful, and hearing that kids are saying we shouldn't have to be the ones to tell our teachers that we have this plan or this accommodation, and so some changes were made based on that information, and we've really done a little bit better job of notifying our teachers. So like flags now for students are now in the Infinite Campus system based on that student feedback that we had gotten when I was at a POV meeting actually at East High School. So those kinds of things, like when you're hearing those kinds of things and saying, well, let's try to take away that barrier, what barriers can we reduce from hearing our student stories, so.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good work.
Our next presentation, again, in alignment with our strategic plan, supporting every student, MTSS, SEB, which is social, emotional, and behavioral updates. The first one will be given by Jacob Laurent, our coordinator. And he has someone with him. He's going to introduce this person.
Hello, in the interest of time, I'm going to actually have her go first. I just want to introduce her. I get to meet a lot of people in my job, which is one of the coolest parts of my role. I get to meet a lot of people that give me extreme hope for public ed, and it gives me extreme hope for putting kids first. And my colleague over here, Kristen Passion, is one of those people. And I'm going to let her introduce herself better, but she is an MTSS coordinator at Ordine. And I just wanted you all to see more so, instead of me coming up and saying in bullet point fashion what this is, to hear from her words and her lived experiences. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Kristen.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share some information with you. But before I do that, so Jake had asked me to come with the frame of explaining what a day in the life of an MTSS coordinator looks like. But before I do that, I wanted to share a story with you. So I had the pleasure of taking 5 students with a colleague of mine, Eli Mullenbach. We took 5 students to Restorative Practices Student Ambassador Training at Cloquet Public Library on Tuesday. This was with Mickelson Consulting, and I had previously done the training. It was lovely. And so we had a fantastic day with students learning about restorative practices, talking with students from other buildings, asking questions, and it was really phenomenal. And so when we got on the bus to come home, we were in a dialogue talking about the way that we're using restorative practices currently in Ordine and how we might increase our usage of those practices in the future. And we started talking about relationships with teachers and learning, and one student said to me, you know, I know that I learn best when I know that my teacher cares about me. And I said, well, how do you know when your teacher cares about you? And she thought for a second, and she said, you know, it makes a big difference when somebody says to me, you know, how was your day? Or ask me questions about my life, when they joke around with me, when they laugh and have fun with us. And then when it's time for us to focus on content, I feel a lot more comfortable asking them questions. And I sat there and thought about that, and I thought, you know, that should come as no surprise to us, right? We all know that students learn better in spaces where they feel safe and seen and cared for. And if we are intentional about creating school environments that are focused on positivity, where teachers and students genuinely enjoy spending time together, and where there's a continuous focus on reflection and improvement, we know that students will thrive. So we all know that already. And when everyone allocated ESSER dollars to creating the MTSS positions, I feel like that is an indication that we understand the importance of that intention and that culture building and data-driven decision-making are a priority, but that work is not over. And so now I will share what I actually do during the day. So in the roughly year and a half since we started in these positions, we've made a lot of changes in our school climate. And so I don't forget anything, I am actually going to read this verbatim. I had to write it down, it's too much. So on any given day, I might meet with grade level teams or individual teachers addressing behavior areas where that might be in need of reteaching in our school. I might meet with CIT to review monthly behavior data and progress on SIP action steps surrounding PBIS and that initiative. I might work with counselors and social workers to develop and tweak SEL lessons for increased middle level engagement. I might assist administrators in addressing attendance-related issues. I specifically do that regarding tardies. And developing a plan for improvement with students. I meet with parents to create additional community building opportunities and community engagement within our building. I examine referral data to identify trends and ways in which we can use PBIS strategies to address undesirable behavior. And then I meet with my PBIS team, which is amazing. I have to give them a plug. I have the best team. To review data, develop strategies for motivating the adults in our buildings to spend more time recognizing student behavior that is desirable, and planning school-wide events with them has been great fun. Work with students using restorative practices, as I mentioned, to solve problems or just simply to build relationships with them. I listen to a lot of student, staff, and family feedback about how the student experience is playing out in our building, and that allows me to be more responsive to their needs when I'm meeting with my teams. And I said I work with administrators to continuously improve our behavior response plan and to incorporate more restorative practices into that. So that's a long list of things. And, you know, I work at the middle school, Lincoln Park. The look of their MTSS coordinator is somewhat different because they have been on this road for longer than we have. And also our elementary MTSS coordinators are also doing something that might look slightly different. They might be doing things that I am not, and vice versa. But the bottom line is that no matter who we're talking about, our work is having a direct positive impact on the students in our building. So as we at Ordine continue our PBIS training, we'll continue to improve our processes. I'm really excited and thrilled to be a part of that, and it's nice to see that even though those strategies have existed for a long time in some 709 schools, that we're making the push to make that an experience that all students are receiving district-wide, which is wonderful. I'm glad to be a part of it. If we don't continue to allocate resources in that direction, I don't believe we'll be able to implement PBIS to fidelity, at least not at Ordine. And we run a serious risk of losing the benefits that we have already worked for the last year and a half to create. So I believe that we need to invest the financial and human capital that is necessary to see that through all the way to full implementation, or our students will lose out. And that does not feel right to me. So that said, I understand these positions will evolve over time to meet the needs of our students. I know in some schools there are already Tier 2 behavior interventions happening. We would like to be implementing that at Ordine as well. Perhaps we could serve as instructional coaches for new teachers in our buildings or new staff who are coming from within the district so that their classroom management strategies are in line with our PBIS structure that we have in place. And in all likelihood, we'll probably do all of the things that I just listed and more. So no matter what the intricacies of the positions are currently, I know that our communities deserve to have us there doing this work, and that we are helping keep everyone focused on teaching our students how to be the best possible versions of themselves. And the process of that through tangible student outcomes. So we're building culture to include relationships with teachers, academic performance, positive peer-to-peer interactions. All of that is a direct result of what we are doing every day. And my conversation with that 8th grader yesterday, or 2 days ago on the bus yesterday, it says it all to me. She says to me, I learn best when I know that people care about me. And that's what we're here to do. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. You can go sit down.
Yeah. I've known her for a couple years now, and that still gives me goosebumps if that doesn't just make you realize why we do this job, right?
Mm-hmm.
For her sake of her time and her family, does anyone have questions for Kristen?
No, just thank you for sharing with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it so much.
I guess I am interested in just like, where were you already a teacher in our district?
Oh.
Are you,
Let's,
you know?
Yes, I should have
do you-
said that to start. So I have been with the district, I think, 10 years.
Okay.
I worked as the elementary music teacher at Lester Park in Holmcroft for 4 years, and then came to Ordine as the choir director. I did that for 3 years, and then last year I started this position. So it's my first time out of music in my 16-year career.
and your music students must miss you.
I miss them.
Yeah.
What's nice is that I still get to see them. Yes, so I still have those relationships, but I do miss singing, I won't lie.
And she rocks in assembly. I've seen it in action. So that's an extra bonus.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I have a sickie at home, so I'm gonna.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
We just have a few slides to go through. My name is Jacob Lawrence. I'm the climate coordinator. My apologies for my colleague Callie Brent, who can't be here today. Often you hear Jake and Callie or Callie and Jake. And so just really thankful to have such a great partner that just kind of has the same vision, that we're able to kind of move this stuff together collectively. I'm going to go into a little bit of the PBS work, and really this is kind of progress monitoring. So I believe we presented in the summer-ish, beginning of the school year, and just giving kind of some updates. As you know, our biggest push is PBIS. That's where we're putting most of our energy. As I stated before, if we don't do this well, we're going to have to wait a heck of a long time to be able to have people open to try this again. And so this is priority number one for us. We did a refresher that was very successful with our 6 schools. It's something that the feedback was so positive, it'd be great to try to allocate some time every year for these teams just to sit down and go, to have the time to really focus on what that year is. Otherwise, it's very difficult to plan your culture and climate in a building in 30-minute meetings. So that was a really kind of just awesome collective day, and just to see all those people, some of them have been the original trained groups, and that's really cool to see people that have been part of those teams for that long. For new schools, it's 5 days of cohort training. We are through 2 days. Our third day will be the week after Thanksgiving. We'll skip December. We have January and February. Again, these trainings are put on by MDE. We don't pay for the trainers. We are just paying for the subs. It's also super great to have this space. Just coming from UHG, where you could not do a training. So we get to open all this up. We get to put 70 people in this room. And just have the collective kind of learning. It's really, really great. So that partnership with MDE has just been wonderful. And they're tailoring it, again, just for Duluth, which is very rare in the state of Minnesota. So I feel very thankful for that. So she's an MTSS coordinator. We continue to meet with them bi-weekly. And the goal is that we're giving them bite-sized chunks that every 2 weeks we can just keep that infantile walking, plodding ahead, and we want all schools to be moving forward at that same pace. And so this is where it gets difficult. Some schools originally were further ahead than others, but for example, a common area that we are in our second year on are those school climate surveys. So we just closed the window on that. To me, that's a game changer because often we never look at data like that. And to get, we have a much higher parental guardian replies this fall so far, and that's really great. And then, of course, our kid data is awesome, and then the staff stuff too. So it's all separated. We all put it in one big spreadsheet, and we're able to compare schools. We're able to compare last fall, and that's really kind of cool. So that's going to be the goal. That is a bookend going forward. I think we got the process figured out enough now that it's not as work intensive to analyze that data. We learned. We will do that in the spring again. And then we also did that, what's called the TFI, that Tiered Fidelity Inventory. And that's really where we look at our systems, right? Are our systems equitable? Do we have the right people on the teams? Where do we need to go for all students? And I don't know if you remember, I brought up the Culture Responsive Field Guide before. That part goes into there too. They're both very lengthy kind of documents, but at the end of the day, it's a way to rank our teams and help us set goals so that we continuously improve in kind of the social, emotional, behavioral world. So for those PBIS teams. We also have our coordinators working on the attendance campaign through the tiers. So what is every kid looking at? What are we doing for those kids struggling? And then what are we doing for those severe chronic absences? This will be around as long as we have education. And it's some of the hardest challenges we face to get kids in our building, especially that 5 to 10% that can be chronically absent. It's hard work. It's a lot of phone calls, can be home visits, can be other interventions that are needed. We also are working on collective bus incident referrals and positive reinforcement for buses. We continue to revisit our behavior response plans. Now that we have a higher capacity in restorative practices, we want to continue to make that an option anytime we have disciplinary action. And then also at least monthly data review for behavior, attendance, OSS, ISS, and then we're learning EduClimber that you all have been told about. That's that data warehouse. And so all of those staff, MTSS coordinators were trained last week. So just other people that can collectively pull up that data at any given moment, which is just something we never had before. And then right now we're working on exploring how to get our PBIS language tied in with our Key Zone. As you know, Key Zone's a YMCA program, but just like with our bus drivers, why wouldn't we give them tools that are working in our sites instead of reinventing the wheel? And hopefully also aligning some of our kind of behavior response with what YMCA does, because it looks very different than what we do in the schools. So we're looking for some partnership. That should be in January. So lots of work with them. Really thankful to have them. It allows us to get a direct link to all schools at all times for social, emotional, behavioral work going forward. It also takes a huge burden off principals that we continue to ask a lot of. And so these people are kind of their right hand in regards to that other side of the triangle. Moving over to the next slide, just with training, we're excited, we're gonna have a tier 2 training. That means, if kids need intervention, that we're gonna have a bona fide curriculum, which seems like that should just make sense, but we haven't had that. And so we actually have social thinking coming to us to do this training. I believe we have about 50 or 60 people receiving that training for tier 2, and that's for social emotional behavioral. We have a tier 2 training as well for all staff on December 4th. That's 2A, which means it's teacher-led interventions. And then also restorative practice training. Lincoln Park will get a more robust as they are much farther along than the rest of our district. We have restorative practice circle training in January 9th and 10th. We're able to shrink that training from 3 to 2 days, so that's awesome, because 3 days is a lot to be out of your buildings, and we want to train more teachers. That's our goal. And then I already shared those other upcoming PBIS cohort trainings. Moving over to SEL, which is social emotional learning. We're in our 3rd year of second step. I'd say we're feeling pretty darn comfortable with it. They continue to make it more usable and beneficial, and I appreciate that. A lot of these places take your check and then don't improve. They continuously improve the program, as well as being able to look at data. As you can see, last year our goal was 85%, elementary was almost 92, and middle school was just over 85. Someone just like Kristen and then Jen Fuchs at Lincoln Park have put a ton of time to update it so it's more applicable to middle school, as it had some holes that we didn't like. And so it's great to have people that like this, that know their buildings, that can, and to tailor it for those kids, and they're putting in PBIS language with it, so that's a pretty amazing thing. We have Spanish posters, lanyards, bullying prevention kits, and then this after-school kits. Those are all under second step purchased for our schools. And then right now, just looking at, we have ID'd someone who could translate all 120 lessons into Ojibwe. And that was Edie Washington Benesikwe who found that person, so that's not a guarantee, but we've ID'd someone, so I guess we'll just put the word as exploring right now. But they already have a Spanish program that's free with it, so this would make us pretty across the board, which would be awesome. We also have base education, and again, this would be for East. East is a very large school. We have to do that very, very right, and so this year is an exploration with that. Hopefully we can embed that for next year. A very innovative social emotional learning curriculum. High school's hard. High school's hard to tell anyone this is cool to learn about, and so we're going to spend this year and then working with Kelly Flohog as well to just make sure that it's exactly what we want for those kids and for that school. Just going to go briefly over Project Aware. This is our 3rd year. We've talked about this. Every year we do a shape assessment. It basically ranks our systems. We had pretty good improvement this fall, which is pretty great. We've also purchased more calming kits for schools, distributed them out. Our offices are actually just filled with calming kits right now. It's pretty brutal.
Where can we find them? No.
We continue to work with a lot of our partnerships that sometimes are smooth, sometimes are not. And then training everyone again on the risk suicide protocol, as well as making sure people understand 988, which is a mental health resource 24/7, and working with our local kind of outreach center here. They have higher capacity and they expect to just keep growing. So that's a huge win just for our whole community. Makes me very, very excited. And then we also do youth mental health first aid trainings, and we have to do 3 of those every year through the AWARE grant. So we're hoping to plan to do some of those with clericals, just because they're on the front lines every day, and they have to deal with upset kids, parents, sometimes staff. So just some of our numbers for co-located. So again, these are kids who are receiving therapeutic services. I think this is a lot to celebrate. If you're looking at that 231 number, as of October 1st, we had 231 kids in our district receiving outpatient, so therapeutic services in our buildings with partnerships. To me, that means this system is working. That means our social workers and gen ed counselors are getting kids the services they need, and then that our partnerships are able to answer the call. Can't say highly enough of our partners with this. We couldn't do it without them. That number says a lot. As well as looking at last year, just having 471 referred. So that means 471 referred, 231, well, half of our referrals are ending up with kids receiving therapeutic services. And so there can be a lot of barriers there, as you all know, but very proud of that number. I'm not going to go through this whole list just due to time. I feel like as you, just kind of with policy work, as you start fixing one thing, you start seeing little holes in other areas. As you even talked to Ms. Lowfald, we're getting to the point that big system, we have all the ideas and the gears in motion to make that work. It takes years to get that to a beat. Well, all the minute pieces that make this a really robust system are really the stuff that's gonna kind of eat up the time just to make this so that we're not missing kids. Because even the best systems we have, we're still gonna have kids slip through those cracks. And so a lot of our work lands in that, as well as just supporting kids. So I won't go through this list. Feel free to read on your own. If you have questions, you could always email me.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Because I do have comments, so I want to make sure I take questions first.
This is just a simple one. Can you highlight the 6 PBIS schools again? Just
Yes. It's Laura Mack, it's Piedmont, it's Lowell, Denfeld, Lincoln Park, and Lakewood. And Denfeld is our oldest PBIS school.
And those are the 6 that had it previous. Now we're bringing on the other 7
Yep.
buildings because we made that focus. I remember the principals sharing that last year, that they really appreciate that.
That's correct. All of our schools are
Yeah.
now focused on becoming PBIS schools and engaged in this work. And what I was going to share is, as you recall, a lot of concerns have always been brought up or continue to be brought up around student behaviors and how we are supporting student behaviors and how we as a district providing opportunities to improve the climate of our schools. And this is one of the key strategies, as you heard Jake and Kristen share. This is just one of those areas of focus for us as a district. We are really intentional about providing supports for students, supports that those students need. We're focusing on the what we call Tier 1, which is just foundationally how kids feel when they walk into the building, how they are welcomed and greeted and feel welcomed and a part of the school. That's Tier 1. That's the foundational focus for PBIS, and we're trying to ensure that all of our schools are engaged in that work, and we have staff that are really helping to push that forward. And then you heard in your presentation other structures and supports in place for kids who need it, all the way up to, I think that last slide that discussed the therapy and treatment that many of our students are receiving in our district. So as a district, we are really trying to make sure that students receive the supports that they need. And I want to make sure the community hears that and doesn't think that we are not really, are intentionally striving to improve the climates of our school and foster positive learning environments and meet the needs of our diverse student population. Any other questions? Member Lawford.
I just wanted to, thank you for all the partnerships and collaboration. That takes a lot of work in itself, and to keep them going and to keep them healthy. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Member Sadowski.
I just appreciate the intentionality too of looking at each school and being thoughtful about how it's being implemented. I appreciate you sharing about East. I just had a quick follow-up question. The therapy services that are being with partner agencies, is that at every school, or can you share?
Yes, we do have an option at every school. Some have just one, some have multiple due to size, or for example, in our secondaries, even having a partnership with CADT, Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment. They kind of roll through our secondaries. I think it's about a half to a full day, depending on what secondary. So we're really trying to hit niches where it's needed. But yes, at any site you could receive outpatient therapeutic services. Most of those go through HDC at this time.
Thank you.
Local?
So just a couple of things, when you related the climate survey that we took, and I know the intentionality that our principals and our district does to make sure as many respond to that, well, that survey is developed by you and Callie, or is it something we get from the Department of Education? Where does the climate survey originate? The questions and all of that?
Yeah, so that's actually done through PBIS. So that's kind of great in regards to, yes.
No, yeah, just like that makes sense.
Yeah. So same with that TFI portion. And those aren't just Minnesota, that is a national network. And so most of those questions we like. We have made some slight tweaks to some we didn't. But for the most part, it's as is. It's kind of like the MSBA stuff. You don't want to tweak too much because they embedded it. But we have removed a few questions at times. But for the most part, we want to keep that the same so that we can compare, in 10 years, we can compare this data still. And are we making kids feel welcome and safe?
And I know with my experience with PBIS, because Denfeld has been the forerunner with that program, and so I do have experience, and I was always blown away with, even though it was early, because I was there, just the data that we can collect, like where what time of day is the highlighted day, where are we seeing behaviors that we don't want, and then the reward system and the acknowledgement system, and a teacher, kind of clarity on what we're expecting in hallways or in our classroom. So, that's really good. And so restorative practice, done intentionally at elementaries, or is this more of a middle school, high school kind of strategy for climate?
Yeah, best practices everywhere, start them young.
Okay.
What we did last year was train all behaviorists. If you can make a disciplinary decision, then you need to have this tool.
Yeah.
I believe we had about 90% of our administrators, a good chunk of social workers and counselors, minus maybe one or two. And our goal now is to get into that outside of just behaviorists, and let's start getting more classroom teachers, paraprofessionals, MHPs, really just to continue to grow. I believe last year we had 130 people trained. The goal right now, and this is the struggle, is how do we make sure that they are using it as a tool? Because suspension's the easiest answer in the world. I'll fill out this form and say, see you in 3 days. Restorative practices takes the energy, takes the time, but your recidivism rate drops dramatically. And so that's where we're kind of at right now, of trying to embed it more into our behavior response plans.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I want to thank again Jake and Callie, who couldn't be here tonight, for all their efforts to and moving this work forward for us and the district. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jake?
So next, we have, under the category of supporting every student, we have a report, and a report is going to be provided by Sherry Williams. And I'm going to turn over to Coordinator Williams.
Alrighty. Hi there. So this is an annual report to the public. This is done every year about this month. So just an opportunity to let you know how Head Start funding was utilized in the Duluth Public Schools. I'm going to go quickly through these pages. It's a beautiful document though. I think we're learning how to get these reports done better and better every year. So Head Start, again, works to serve income-eligible preschool children and their families. We provide comprehensive services that include health-related, mental health-related, and parental education. And so we are working to prepare young children for success in school and families to help them move to take steps out of poverty. And so we offer preschool services in 7 of Duluth's elementary schools, and we have a state-funded Head Start program that works primarily with families experiencing homelessness. The funding that we receive comes from the Office of Head Start, so federal Head Start. We also receive funding from state Head Start and the Pathways to Early Learning Scholarship. And those funding streams together help us support low-income families in our preschool. Most of those costs go to staffing. That is one of the beautiful things about being a part of a school district, and we are the only Head Start in the state of Minnesota where the school district is the grantee, is that our teachers are part of the teachers bargaining unit and are paid a salary that is a livable wage. Because of that, we see very low staff turnover, and across the state and other community action organizations, there is a very high staff turnover because early childhood education is not funded as it should be. So, that said, we were funded last year to serve 224 children. We were under-enrolled last year, in part to the changing needs of families. We did notice that our half-day programs had under-enrollment concerns, and so when we submitted our grant last year, we asked to change 2 of our half-day programs to full-day programs, which we have just received word has been approved.
What did, okay.
Yeah, so that changes, obviously that's going to help us achieve full enrollment. So our state Head Start program serving, we have a home visitor and 2 home visitors working with families experiencing poverty. That is a place where we have some early Head Start slots. Most Head Start age children, 3 and 4-year-olds, are actually brought to classrooms because the McKinney-Vento busing can bring 4-year-olds to a classroom. So we're seeing just more early Head Start need in homeless shelters where we find ourselves working. And we are seeing our family advocates are all reporting an increase in homelessness with families with very young children. Our Pathways to Early Learning Scholarship funds a second paraprofessional in all of our classrooms, and so that is much needed. We have gone through an audit last year. There were no findings there. We believe that all children should have strong bodies, strong minds, and strong families. And so we celebrate the diverse population that we serve. So there's some statistics about that population. Health, meeting the health needs of families is one of the comprehensive services of Head Start. So we work to make sure that they've got health insurance, that they've had an ongoing source of continuous accessible health care. We monitor 19% of students were up to date on their yearly physical exams at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year that number was 69%. So we'll remove barriers that might prevent a family from getting to the doctor for a physical. So we'll provide transportation, we'll meet them there at the clinic if they need some support going through that appointment. But we're very much about removing the barriers to help people access what they need. 92% of children were up to date on their immunizations, and 97% have what we call a dental home, so a regular dental dentist that they go to. 81% of kids receive preventative dental care during the school year. And again, we do participate in the child dental services that come into the schools. We have a licensed nutritionist on staff that helps families with special dietary needs and looks through our menu to make sure that we're meeting the recommended nutritional requirements for children of this age. And I've included a slide about children's growth in the area of physical development and health from our assessment tool, the desired results developmental profile. We have a collaboration with the Duluth YMCA. And every year, 72 of our preschool children go through a 6-week anti-drowning program called Safety Around Water. We also distributed 286 day passes to families last year. 86 children rode the bus safely to school following the implementation of our safe delivery of preschool children. So we did train parents and bus drivers on what safety looks like for preschool on the bus. And we do a great job preparing kids for kindergarten. So we are looking at, we not only have Head Start into the preschool, we have school readiness and we have voluntary pre-K. And so the scores that you're seeing on the slide is a comparison of all three of those programs. So we want to make sure that our low-income students are at par with the other funding streams, and that's something that we monitor. We are a fully inclusive program, so we have many students with IEPs in our classroom. We started out the year last year with 12.2% of children with IEPs in our classroom. And because we're the first place that children come, we often identify students who also need special ed services. So at the end of the year, we were at 26.6, and that is a very typical, that's a typical range that we see every year. Last year, though, there was a 46% increase in mental health referrals, so that was a significant jump that was noted and we are planning for. We've done some programming this year as a result of that number from last year. Another thing that we monitor is the learning of our students on IEPs, just wanting to make sure that they are making significant gains in our program. And so the graph you see there is students on IEPs in the fall to the end of the year. And so we do see great gains in our classrooms for students on IEPs. We also monitor all subgroups of children by race. So we are wanting to make sure that we don't see any disproportionate scores there. So that's another thing we keep our eye on. And every year we participate with UMD on studies. Since we've incorporated some nature-based programming, UMD is very interested in studying. Most people who participate in nature-based preschools are children with privilege. And so the fact that we are implementing nature-based programming in a public school is a big deal, particularly UMD. So last year they studied receptive and expressive vocabulary and the relationship between nature-based learning and vocabulary. The studies are looking like there is significant receptive vocabulary growth, especially for children from lower socioeconomic backgrounds as a result of nature-based programming. When those results are published, I will share them with you. It will look very much like the other studies we participated in, which UMD keeps, all in a flourishing in nature. And so this is an example of last year, the year before the last, when they were studying executive functioning in our classrooms. So again, nature-based programming for young children seems to have significant impact on their growth. We did see high rates of absenteeism last year. Illness and transportation were some of the main reasons. And so we are focusing on a strong attendance campaign this year. And then finally, strong families are something that we believe every preschool child should have. Our policy council met in person for most of the months, but we were excited that we had another way to meet. On those months when the weather was bad, we didn't have childcare, we were able to meet virtually, and so that was thanks to the pandemic. We did meet a quorum every month last year. We had active fathers on our policy council, and we were able to take one of our policy council parents with us to Phoenix, Arizona when we presented at the National Head Start Association on our topic, Nature for All. So there's just a few little statistics about
What kinds of services our families received last year? We do have 5 family advocates on staff whose job is to support families. And so they do family partnership agreements with them. They set goals with a certain number of families and help them take steps towards, steps out of poverty. That's really what we're looking at, how to break the cycle of poverty. That's what Head Start is all about. And 77% of families surveyed participated in some type of family event. So that's 200 adults and 230 children. We had our first citywide event at the end of last year at the Great Lakes Aquarium, where 89 families attended, 165 children attended. And this year we've expanded that to have multiple citywide events throughout the course of the year. Last year, Governor Walz came to a Head Start program along with Mayor Emily Larson. We had 3 of our Parent Policy Council members there to greet them. They were all completely thrilled to meet such important people. It's pretty powerful to see people be amazed, and that's what our parents were, amazed. There's a list of the community partnerships that we have with various organizations in Duluth. And just a reminder about how special Duluth Head Start is. I mean, Duluth Public Schools have been a grantee since its inception in 1965. So long before early childhood was recognized as a very powerful time to work with kids and to make huge gains for that critical period of learning, Duluth Public Schools has supported it. So we commend the Duluth Public Schools for that awareness. And that concludes my annual report to the public.
Thank you, Sherry. I do see some questions or green lights for questions. Member Snowski.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to try not to get choked up, honestly, because I've been working with people experiencing homelessness for a long time, and I've had the opportunity to refer young parents to our program here long before I was on the school board. And so I've seen for many, many years how impactful the work is. And when you talk about the increase in families experiencing homelessness, I see it, and I really appreciate your work. Our family shelter is full right now. We've renovated the units, they're full. We have more in shelter waiting. We served 100 youth last year in our shelter and living center. So, but, you know, it's just really, really important that we have this system in place to create a way, like you said, to kind of interrupt that cycle. So I really appreciate it. And also just, I didn't know that it has been embedded in the district, or that, I knew it was, but I didn't know that it was unique. And that is really cool, so I really appreciate you sharing that. That really makes a difference when we have low staff turnover, because our wages are livable wages, because they're embedded in the district, so it all is so important. So thank you.
Thank you for that. It is extremely important. Not only is it embedded in our district, it's embedded in our schools. And so it's a model that actually the state is constantly referencing, and it's something that I believe they're chasing and aspiring for more districts to consider. It's something we should be really, really proud of. When we talk about our youngest learners, we have them in our schools right away, being exposed to teaching and learning, and we're trying to make sure that it's appropriate, play-based, and again, supportive of those students and those families. So I think this is a program, an opportunity for families that we don't brag enough about, and I think people may not be aware of, and it is something that does make a difference. So thank you to you and your team, Director Williams. Member Walker Kim.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should be writing more about it, and Head Start's near and dear to my heart, and I just think that, well, you highlighted the point about the teachers and that there's little turnover, and I know in being the liaison with Head Start, that, you know the teachers and the staff, all the staff, just love what they do, and they keep coming back even when they retire. I understand. I also think that it's really great, the work that you do with the Parent Governing Board. And one of our PTA leaders out at Stowe was on the Parent Governing Board, and she is starting up and helping lead a new PTA group out at Stowe, and that's really a testimony to the work that is done with those parent leaders as well. So, thank you.
Joe?
So just a couple comments to the Head Start, the paras, that you were able to put a second para in all of our classrooms, or some of them? All of them?
Yes.
And we're not struggling to find candidates for those positions?
We currently are struggling to find two.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And are they funded from the monies that Head Start and our get, right? That doesn't come from our
Pathways
district,
to-
right?
No, it's not from the
Yeah.
district, it's from the Pathways to funding from the state administration.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then I'm really glad about the strong attendance program, and I've noticed that from our district as a whole district-wide initiative, and we've done this a little bit before, but I haven't seen it so consistent. And again, that goes back to what Jen and Brenda presented to us, and what Jake and Callie bring to us, that when everyone is on the same page, it seems to make a bigger impact than just if one building is focused on attendance. So, I really appreciate that. And then just I did not know that already in our early childhood programming and Head Start, and it must be all of those, that we are identifying the students that might need some special services.
Yes.
So as young as 3 and 4 were already, and then does that follow them into our regular schooling, or is there a way at the end of, before they're moving into a kindergarten classroom, that they see significant improvement because of the early interventions?
Well, first of all, I need to say that they can be identified at birth, so it happens before.
Okay, that's true.
So
That's true.
Going forward, you could be identified. And I feel like Becky Crane would be a better one to speak to this. If there are people who age out, I think that I don't know what the statistics exactly are on that,
Okay.
but I assume there are some, but I don't have those statistics.
Jason has given a thumbs up as someone who's back there too. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Board, community, that concludes our presentations for today. And I want to thank everyone for being patient with us and listening to all the wonderful information. Again, the community, I want to remind everyone, the presentations you saw today is in alignment again with our strategic plan. These are things that we said as a district that we would prioritize, and that we would come back to the board and the community to show efforts for those things that have been mapped out in our strategic plan. And so we will be coming back every month with additional presentations related to other areas that are identified as efforts that we are undertaking as a district to improve outcomes for kids. So I want to thank the board for your attention and patience as we make these wonderful presentations. And thank everyone for all the work behind the scene to get the presentations ready. I think my team, I try my best to let them know how appreciative that I am of them and all of their work. And I know they're working really hard to improve outcomes and programs for students and to make things better. And I think over time, we're going to continue to see improvements in student performance and outcome, and hopefully significant ways. If we continue to, as a district, find ways to support our schools. And I want to thank the community for supporting our referendum, our most recently passed referendum and efforts, because those resources are critical to continuing to support programming that is critical for our students to improve outcomes. So I want to thank the committee for that support. We're going to do our very best to improve outcomes for kids and leverage those resources to the best.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And we're adjourned then.
We have
Does anybody know if I have to go to a different meeting for the next meeting, or a different, we'll meet